Well, hello, Sharon. Thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah, absolutely. I was really excited to get the chance to meet you, and I love your podcast. So I've listened to a couple of them because I just found out about you. So I've been keeping up with that from a friend, and yeah, really excited to share my story.
And I love having listeners come on. And that's really, I've put that call out there and just would love to have more listeners come and share their story like you're going to do here today of, your travel story. And I always like to start with sort of your origin travel story. Like many people, it either goes back, their fondest memory, or sometimes it's something that just started later in life. So, what would you say is your origin travel story that got you into travel?
Yeah, I was an adventurer probably since the day I was born. You know, if the doorbell rang, I was the first to know who was there, what was going on, the mystery of it all. And yeah, reading. I'm an English teacher, so reading
Mm,
Trixie Belden. She was like a knockoff of Nancy Drew. And
okay.
yeah, so that's how my life was. But yeah, she was a knockoff of Nancy Drew, and she's this quirky, freckled haired girl or freckled faced girl, red hair kind of. And I would sit in a tree in like September, my favorite tree in our backyard with Concord grapes, just climbing up there. And, being a woman or a young girl, you're just looking down at this world with this book in my hand. And she went on these adventures and solved
Mhm.
mysteries and was empowered. And she went to places that I didn't know of because we didn't have Google, right, back then,
Mhm.
or
Yeah.
YouTube. And so it really opened my eyes to this world of mystery and discovery. And it was really empowering for me.
I love that. I love hearing origin stories. But
Yeah.
you have some new developments in sort of this travel life of yours. And I know that in later in life, you've started a new adventure, I like to call it. And I
Yeah.
wanted to hear you doing some long-term travel, I should say, but share with us what was the impetus for sort of that what's happening now, I guess, and what got you into this
Yeah.
long-term travel now?
Well, I would say, I've always found ways to do some traveling, right? But it was COVID, to be quite honest.
Mm.
I'm a teacher, and it was just awful. As most teachers will tell you, the
Yeah.
system,
Yeah.
don't ignore the system anymore. Systemically, how bad it was and how it was affecting students and how we were being micromanaged. And I resigned. I had no backup plan, none. And I went, this is killing my soul.
Mhm.
And I said, you know what? I'm a smart, intelligent person. I don't know how I'm going to do this, but I'm not a religious person, but I'm spiritual. I just felt this like resign, and I did.
Mhm.
And it allowed me in those 4 months to teach exactly the way I wanted to teach because I was untouchable. And when I left, I was like, what am I going to do with these skills? How am I going to transfer them? And I found a volunteer AmeriCorps, believe it or not. And I thought, if I go to college, I have to pay for it and I don't show anything at the end. And I'm not opposed to education whatsoever. But I felt like I was on a time constraint. So I found this, I ended up working at a college and I did get a stipend. And my boss at the time said, yeah, go ahead and travel because it was still COVID.
Mm,
So
mhm.
a friend of mine who's an avid traveler and birder said, yeah, take my tent, took her tent, put it in my car, and started traveling on the East Coast, just camping and living. And my friends knew, so they're like, oh, stop by my house. So I had places to stay. And if I saw a fruit stand, I stopped or turned
Yeah.
around
Yeah.
and camped with the tide rolling in Maine, which is beautiful, and Cumberland Island in Georgia with roaming horses. And I said, this is the life I want. This is me. It's my soul. And so that what I've noticed is when you travel and work, some people are fine with it, and some bosses will automatically have an issue with it when they change. And a boss changed, and she was really upset.
Ah,
And while I was traveling, for no reason, my work was done. But I ended up being able to finish that job, and I found an online job. Same thing, that boss loved it. She had no problem with me working online. Six bosses later in a month, if that isn't a red flag.
In a
And
month?
decides there, yeah,
So,
yeah, actually less than that, to be quite honest.
oh my goodness.
Um, there was, and I got a doing very well, no bad reviews, nothing. And all of a sudden it became an issue. So we know that's usually something else going on. But
Mhm.
here's where I found my voice. Because it had happened already, it's funny, I don't know if that's happened to you or any of your listeners, but when you use your voice and you are a rule follower and you do the things, and all of a sudden your body is telling you the signs, your gut's telling you this isn't right, and you follow through, it's almost hard to do that because I've been a rule follower my whole life. And you almost think the cops are going to come and say, shame on you. You shouldn't have made this, like it really was that bizarre the first time. But now I'm in this position. I'm in England, and all of a sudden they're like, "What's the problem? You can come home now, or resign." And I said, "Well, if I come home now, could I still lose my job?" They said, "Yes." And I
Oh,
said,
wow.
"Well, I'm not resigning, but it sounds like you made the decision." And so they wanted me to resign so they wouldn't have to pay me, right? Or have
Correct.
any issue. And
Yes.
I just said, yeah, I'm choosing not to resign, but I understand you have to do what you need to do. So they called it a separation, which is funny. It feels like a divorce. And I shared my story because usually we hear, what does that feel like after I've solved all those problems? It's really rare that someone is going to say, oh, yeah, I'm in that problem now. That's the problem I'm in. And I can share, like I said, with you and anybody else who's been in that position. I don't feel scared this time. I
Mm.
don't. And that to me lets me know that there's another lesson in this adventure of, okay, so I had a tutoring job, called them up. I said, give me as many as you can. So I'm getting money in right now. I do have a cushion and I'm going to do the next great step. And that's what's interesting is through traveling that has calmed my nerves. And I
Mm.
know you're a traveler, and when you
Mhm.
travel, I'm never learning just about traveling. It's always affecting who I am as a person, right? It's always a bigger lesson for me and how I want to live my life. And I really feel this was about me saying I'm allowed, because I have some generational trauma as well.
Okay.
Um, and with that being said, I was never allowed to have emotions, right? Like I always needed to know what my mother needed. And this journey has said, oh, I'm allowed to feel. So I
Mm.
felt, and then I'm allowed to act logically.
Yeah.
So I used to sometimes act like this is horrible, and then I would get tunnel vision and not know how to respond. But instead, I was like, oh, this seems, what are the feelings I need to have? I
Mm.
felt them. And then I said, logically, what's the next right step? And the next right step is I'm smart, I'm educated, I'm going to get those tutoring jobs. They told me I could actually reapply when I got back in January. So I might do that.
Okay.
I might do that. I don't know. But yeah, that's where I am now. And then I was trying to figure out, so cost wise, I found a cruise for 2 weeks. That'll give me food, that'll give me
But
transportation, and that will give me travel. So I'm doing that December 5th for 2 weeks.
that's awesome. What I love
Yeah,
about what you just shared too was how you were able to find, or at least you found at one point to listen to your authentic self and take those risks and just really, even though it's scary, and we know
right.
so as a new solo traveler, there's some fear, or you're scared of certain things, but when you do it, like you were saying, you developed this confidence and you got your voice as you said. And I love that you shared that. I mean, I think that is clearly important. I mean, not just, I mean, everybody in everyday life should be able to, be their authentic self. And I've been where you've been too, or I used to work in human resources, so big rule follower, right? So,
Yes.
so when you take these big leaps of, it can be scary, and people outside of that kind of look at you going, "Wow, it's a little crazy," but it's also a chance, like you said, it feels like, at least for me and to you, and sounds like you created that space too by traveling to find that true identity and to really, well, I mean, travel too. I mean, I hear a lot of people with COVID having done that. A lot of teachers left their
Yeah.
jobs, exactly like you said. And but I'm finding now, we've been allowed to work remotely, and like sounds like your cases as well. A lot of
Mhm.
employers are now requiring
Yeah.
employees to come back to the office. And so this is like a big issue. But I think we have to be, especially at our age, I feel like we have to be true to ourselves because I don't want to be miserable. Like, working your job or the
Exactly.
rest of your life doing something that doesn't excite you or light up your soul. So
Well,
thank you
and
for
that's
sharing that.
it. Yeah, and, I've noticed that, when people ask me questions, I'm like, "Oh, I found my voice," but honestly, I'm always finding it with
Oh yeah,
traveling. It's
absolutely.
still discovering it, and, the one thing I learned is I would never be loyal to a job again,
Hmm.
ever. I would be loyal to me, and a
Yes.
lot of people think, "Oh, does that mean you're not a good employee?" Absolutely not. I will absolutely do a good job, hopefully a great job, and my reviews show that. But what I won't be is loyal to a boss anymore. I'll be loyal to me, and that means setting up really healthy boundaries. And
Yeah.
that means saying to them at times, not in this situation, but saying, "I understand you have to do what you need to do,
Yeah.
but this is where I am on this situation." Setting up boundaries doesn't mean I tell other people what they have to do. It means telling myself, this is what I'm going to do,
Yeah.
and this is when I'll answer, this is how I'll solve it. But yeah, being authentic is so important, and it's always a good guide. Always in my situation,
Hmm.
it's always been a much better guide than trying to conform to things that don't feel natural to me.
Yes. Yeah. And you mentioned your generational trauma.
Yeah.
And I like how you also brought in that, finding those boundaries. And that's also important, I think, even as we travel, like kind of knowing where, especially if you're dealing with that still, possibly. I'm just saying, speaking widely here, that knowing where you feel comfortable traveling, where you feel safe to travel, right? Based on maybe that, we don't want you to be anxious in a place that doesn't kind of give you that space, I like to say, to enjoy your solo travel. So, again, I love the boundary idea. Very
Yeah,
important.
for
Yeah.
sure.
Yes. So, what has been because you've been solo traveling for a while now, what has been the most challenging aspect of a solo travel for you?
Yeah, so, if we're talking kind of like me as a person, how it's connected to me, I would say finding my confidence in my voice, and that's something I realize always continues. If you ever want to find your voice and confidence, I highly recommend going to Paris. You will have to find it there. If you have you been?
Yes, I've been twice. Yeah.
So I went by myself the first time, and that is perhaps another story for another time. But you will find it there because you can't go in timid to Paris. You need to
Mm,
know who you are, and it was so, again, being the reader, the writer that I am. I mean, it was like bam, symbolism right in my face.
yeah.
So that was a huge thing. But now I would say mostly it's transportation, where am I going to stay? And even though I love traveling, it is a headache because those are the things you're not quite
Hmm.
there yet. And again, that's
Hmm.
metaphorical for ourselves. I'm not here, I'm not there. I'm
Mm.
having to plan out how much does it cost, and if I'm once I'm there, everything will be fine, and that's not always true. So, but I would say that that's the part that I don't hate it, but it's the most challenging.
I would agree with the whole
Yeah,
transportation thing. I
and
always
making sure you're not getting scammed or something like that. Yeah, what were you
oh,
gonna say?
that is a true very true, yes. But if you can navigate the metro in Paris, you can
Yes.
navigate anything in my opinion. It's like, if you can figure that out, which it happened to me, like, towards the end of my
Yeah.
stay there, I was, like, finally like, "Oh, okay, I feel confident, like, I know which line we're going," like, but
Yes.
it takes, uh, you have to use your brain, of course. So
It's a whole, like, yeah, I would if anybody does want to go to, because like that was my love, like for art and writing, like
Mm,
an
mhm.
art teacher, she told us about the Mona Lisa, and like
Yeah.
that was my dream since a child. And I was with a friend in Germany, and then they dropped me off, and I took this train, and of course I couldn't understand the
Mhm.
language and none of it. And even if they told me to stop, and I didn't have any of the right apps, and I got off at the wrong place, but you end up coming out from underneath, like
Yeah.
the abyss up, and like the city is just buzzing. And it was
Yes.
like beautiful. But then all of a sudden it wasn't what I thought it was gonna be. It was this unrequited love. I loved Paris and Paris didn't love me back. And but there's a whole beautiful story in that I discovered myself in the end of
Good.
that journey.
Good.
Yeah.
Yes. I've been to Paris twice. I would say the first time, um, it wasn't as I don't know, it just I don't know how to describe it. It was Paris. It was amazing. It was
Yeah.
huge. It was overwhelming,
Yeah.
honestly. But it wasn't until I returned the second time and I spent a couple days I was there with a friend, but then I spent a couple days by myself that I actually started to fall in love with Paris. So,
100%. Same thing happened to
yes.
me.
So I think, I think once you get past all the overwhelm of being there the first time, right? That you have to
Well,
go
you have
back.
an idea of what you think it is, even though I did a ton of research,
Yeah.
because I'm really a proponent of traveling and wanting, to do my best culturally to immerse myself. And yeah, and even though I did it, it still didn't make a difference. It was it was a lesson in who I was, really is what
Yeah.
that turned out.
Yeah.
And the second time I went, it was totally different. I have
Yes.
friends there now that I visit, and it's
Oh,
it's totally different
awesome.
experience. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I think that might even be true anytime you go to a place a second time around. I mean, there's when you're talking about cities in general, like especially Paris or just big cities, there's so much to see that you can't see it all in one time, all in one visit. So, even for me, I was just in Portugal and Spain and, you know, I was in
You did the
Lisbon.
Camino. I just finished
Yeah.
mine.
Oh, we'll have to talk about that.
So we're on the same trajectory. I love
I
it.
was like, I'm just gonna have to come back because there's so much I missed. But, I enjoyed what I saw. Like I wasn't pushing myself to get to every big place. And I just was trying to enjoy the different cities and towns that I was walking through, of course, for my Camino. But yeah, so um I think just enjoying a new place, and
I'm
not
with you because I talk to other people and they tell me they only like to go someplace once. And the first time is just awe for me.
yeah.
And then the second time is a deep dive.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm still always in awe, no matter how many
Yeah.
times I travel anywhere, even in my
Yeah.
neighborhood. I'm just that I've always been that way. But
Yeah.
but yeah, and then you get to explore deeper. So I totally agree with you.
Yeah. So you just finished the Camino?
Yeah, we did the same thing. I wish I would have gone with you.
Oh
That was
my
the one I
gosh.
actually went with people in May. I left on my birthday and we
Okay.
did well, really it was 14 days and there were five people and I only knew one person.
Oh, okay.
And then the rest, it was my friend, and her two boys.
Okay.
And we did 14 days and it was interesting because I'm such a solo traveler. And as you
Yeah.
know, there's traveling by yourself is one experience and
Hmm.
traveling with other people is totally different.
Absolutely.
And I like both, but I think I tend to prefer solo traveling
Yeah.
because if I want to go to a museum and be lost in there for 10 hours, I can. Or go in for 2 minutes and go, not feeling it.
Right.
I can walk out. And when you travel with people, you can't slow down. I don't want to say you can't slow down. What I mean is you're in a rhythm of a group, and that group makes the decisions. And the memories I have are remember when you dropped the ice cream cone and if, this and that. Remember when we were at this restaurant. But my memories of when I'm by myself is, leaning down in Paris and seeing the colors of a leaf float down a gutter and just being mesmerized by that for like, you know, minutes on end when I wouldn't notice that if I'm with people.
Yeah. No, that's true. Very true. It's so different. And a lot of times you have to compromise when you're with other people.
Did you go by yourself or did you go with people?
In the Camino, I went by myself.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, yeah,
I just saw that you posted that,
yeah,
so I'm gonna have to go back and listen to it.
yeah. So it was an experience. You can listen to the episode
Okay, I'm gonna
that I
listen
talk
to it,
about.
I promise, because
Yeah, yes.
I
Yeah.
just got onto your podcast through some friends, and, so yeah, I
Awesome.
gotta backtrack on a lot of them.
Well, good. Yeah. So we share quite a bit, being from Texas and
Yep.
we've done the Camino, and done a lot of solo travel. I love it. And I've been a teacher as well. So,
Okay.
just, I taught at some colleges, this part-time, but so yes, I left the education academia,
Yeah.
before COVID. Actually, I mean, I guess it was probably a good timing when I left, to be honest. I
Well,
guess
I
I,
think those things, like, that happen in our life are traumatic in the beginning, but
Mhm.
they're always the thing, if we're willing to listen and open up, be the next best thing for me anyway, has always been the next big step that I wouldn't have done on my own had something else not forced me out of that.
Yes. I see a lot of that. I mean, when I look at even some of the travels I've done, like what brought me to that place, and sometimes it was an event that forced
Mm,
me or got me thinking, okay, I need a trip.
yeah.
So, so yeah, I agree with that. Um, what advice would you give solo travelers that women that are just maybe embarking on their first solo trip?
So this is one of my favorite things to share with people I meet, 'cause they're like, "You're by yourself? Like, how do
Yeah.
you?"
I know, I
So
get
I
that all the
got this
time.
down pat, and, the first thing is you gotta start where you are comfortable. So
Mhm.
I tell people, because a lot of people don't like being alone, and I'm not judging that. My advice is, though, meet yourself where you are, and
Mm.
I tell my friends, if your friends are going out, girls' night, to a restaurant, go a half hour early. So
Mm.
walk in by yourself, sit at the bar.
Mhm.
You know there's going to be people there. So
Yeah.
now you don't feel awkward being by yourself, 'cause that's really for a lot of people a huge fear.
Yes.
So you're sitting at
Mhm.
the bar, maybe you get a drink or, a little something. And then if somebody's weird or, oh, my friends are coming,
Yeah.
you have that out right away and you start feeling comfortable knowing what feels safe, what feels awkward. You're not alone because your friends are showing up and you're going to feel comfortable walking into a space and owning it. And that's how honestly I built my confidence up, was doing that. Then my next recommendation is, again, start going to places by yourself, but go to
Mhm.
a hotel either in your hometown or a little, radius. Get a great pool.
Oh,
You're
yeah.
not paying for a flight. You're not paying, all these exorbitant fees.
That's true.
You're paying one night at a beautiful pool and just enjoy it. Bring a book, hang
Yep.
out, tell your friends to join you later if you want. Start getting used to feeling alone and feeling safe and knowing. And then I do tell people two huge safety things is I always have friends and guy friends that I'll say, "Hey, I'm going to text you. I'm going." My very first, like one of my very first was in Nashville. And I was comfortable with Nashville because I'd been there before with people, but I was at bars. So
Mm,
I'd say,
mhm. Yeah.
call me once in a while, or I'm going to text you. That way, if I ever felt somebody, and somebody would be like, oh, my friends are at the other bar. I was lying. I was by myself. I like the music. So I'm hanging out here. And then
Yeah.
I'd have my friend Bob or whoever, and
Yeah.
feel like I have
That's
that
smart.
safety thing. But the biggest one is we all have an old cell phone that still works. Bring
Oh.
it because it has all of your contact information on it. We don't memorize that stuff
No, we
anymore.
don't anymore.
Right? I remember I was thinking back in the 80s, like I had all my friends' phone number, I
Yeah.
couldn't even my best friend's phone number, I don't even know. So you have contact information, you have all the things you need, and it works, Wi-Fi works. So you don't even
Yeah.
have to have it hooked to a plan. It has
Right.
saved me a couple of times. I accidentally left a cell phone in a taxi. Thank God. But I was at the hotel, had my second one. The Wi-Fi worked immediately, called the cab company. It was
Yeah.
settled.
Good.
Or what if I lose my phone or I have an internet, just an issue? You have the phone, dial up, call your phone plan, transfer it. So that
Yes.
would be my biggest because my our cell phones are a safety net, right? Like they are
Yes.
my lifeline.
Yeah, they are for all of us. I mean, and even if, when I'm out and about and I'm traveling, I'm using my GPS quite a bit. So
Right.
that is definitely, you need that to get around. It seems a lot, even just to
Yeah.
walk or, to pin where you're at, right? So you know how to get back.
Absolutely. And taking pictures too, because that'll, I
Yes.
always take even parking, even in the States, if I park
Yes,
my car, I'm
parking.
like, where
Yep.
did I park? That kind of
Yep.
thing.
Do that all the time.
And
Yeah.
then, if people are going abroad, I know I was afraid the first time, but I knew people. So my recommendation would go to England first, somewhere in England, and take the Eurostar to
Mm,
Paris
yeah.
for the day. And that will give you a nice taste because it was scary for me to be in Paris by myself. Obviously, everything worked out fine. But if somebody's afraid of the language barrier and all that, have your location, your home place in England somewhere, take that Eurostar in to Paris and you can go wherever you want to go for a day and then come back until you realize like, okay, I get the, you know,
Yeah, I always recommend that you go if you're gonna go international, see if you can go somewhere where either you know the language or if
yes.
it's your native language that you're
Yeah,
going there so that because language barrier can be I mean, for me, when I was in Portugal, it was a little frustrating just because I didn't know the language and it was
yeah.
I know a little bit of Spanish, but it's so different than Spanish,
No,
and
it
so
is.
yeah. So I was grateful to have Google Translate, but still, even when I didn't have time to pull it out or whatever, you want to have some conversations with people when
Yeah,
you're passing them. So it was a little, I mean, disappointing that I didn't learn the language before I went. But that's why I always say, your first trip, go somewhere, even if it's like you said, local, right?
yeah,
Somewhere that they speak your language. So that's one less stressful, scenario that you are finding yourself in. So I do, but I
absolutely.
love the cell phone thing. I'm gonna have to do that and
It
keep
is.
my
I
old
mean,
one.
it is. It's old. You don't even, and make sure you have the charger that matches, right? Of course, try to make sure it's the so you don't have to carry
Yes.
another
Right.
charger. And I
Right.
guess I don't know if this is one last thing is, and I'm sure you can relate, even though you can travel a million times, getting off transportation, whether it's a bus, a train, a plane, you feel like maybe lost. Oh, I got to catch the next. Don't ever be nervous. It'll all work out. But I always recommend if you're lost, I always find a corner like by a vending machine or something because I don't want to be vulnerable with
Yeah.
pickpocketers. They work in threes. So
Ah.
I make sure I'm not in an open space looking like I don't know where
Yeah.
this is. They can spot you instantly. They're looking for that look.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're by yourself, I've just made myself vulnerable. It's so easy for people to be bumping because they're all exiting. So I always
Mm-hmm.
find a place that kind of is away from people, a wall, a vending machine, a corner, so that I can look at something,
I love
make
that.
sure I can get to the
Yeah.
next
Of course.
place.
Yeah, because sometimes we need a moment to look at our phones or figure out where we're going next, like you said. Yeah.
Yes. So
So
never in a vulnerable place where people
yeah.
can see me looking up and what, that whole thing.
Yeah. Looking lost.
Mm.
Well, through travels, I don't know about you, but I find and experience a lot of just unexpected events or even some fun serendipitous type of events that occur that you weren't expecting. I'd like you to share one with me if you have one on the top of your head that comes to
Yeah,
mind.
I would say, the one that's really it was when I lost my key in Paris.
Mm.
So it was the first time I was there. I had 1% on my cell phone and I was going to do a tour. I was going to go back
Oh my
and I
gosh.
had an Airbnb, but one of those Airbnbs with a third party and, the whole thing.
Oh,
So I had a key and everything. I thought, okay, I'm going to go home. We'll go to the back to the place, freshen up, and go back out and do this tour at night. And I went to get my key and it wasn't there.
oh my
And I had
God.
1% on my phone. I usually carry a map, didn't have the map, couldn't find it. Nobody had talked to me in Paris, like the whole thing, right? And I'm not a crier and I just had tears in my eyes. I couldn't even talk.
Oh
I'm
my
like, how
gosh.
am I going to get in there? And thank God a woman with a small little boy saw me and she goes, oh my gosh, she's like, are you okay? And she was American, but lived in Paris
Okay.
now. And
Yeah.
I literally couldn't say I was that shaken up about it. I just kept pointing to where I needed to be. I need to get, she's like, calm down, it's okay. So she calmed me down and she first said, you know what? It's the tourist season. Even I'm starting to get frustrated. Make sure you say bonjour first, right? Say so whenever you have a conversation with someone, because I was telling her nobody would talk to me, she said, just don't say excuse me. That's actually not culturally appropriate. Say bonjour for everything. or they
Oh,
will be rude and won't talk to you. And I can
okay.
explain later more of the reason behind that. But anyway, she walked me around a corner, Tim's Hotel, I think it was called. Thank God I had my passport and
Mhm.
my credit card. And she kind of wished me luck and she gave me that advice. And I walked in and I had no clothes, nothing. And I'd been walking probably 20 miles because I love to walk.
Yeah.
And I'm exhausted and I'm all of a sudden starting to panic, like, I don't have this key. What am I going to do? And I was starting to research. I had 1% of my phone. Thank God the people gave me a charger I could borrow, so
Yeah.
that was good. And I thought, I'm not going to be able to sleep tonight, right? I open up the shutters of this hotel. I open them up, and it's gorgeous. And I lean my head,
Mm.
and I can now see. I hadn't seen the Eiffel Tower from my place, nor had I seen it at all. I see the Eiffel Tower, and I
Oh.
just had this peace over me, and I said, I could be in anxiety or I could be in peace.
Mm.
Which one am I gonna? And I said, I'm gonna pick Paris. I'm gonna be in Paris because I realized somehow it would work out. Being in anxiety is gonna ruin that I'm in Paris, and that's gonna be the story I'm gonna tell is I don't remember anything. I was upset. I had the best night's sleep, I kid you not.
Ah.
I woke up the next day with no brush. I had a toothbrush. They weren't understanding I needed a brush, so they gave me 220 toothbrush. I have really thick hair. I'm brushing my hair. I have trying to rinse my stuff in the sink what I
Yeah.
could, clean up because I have absolutely nothing. I retraced the entire 20 miles and started every conversation with bonjour. And some of those workers who wouldn't talk to me or would look away, the keys opened up to me. The whole city of Paris opened up. They were very nice. They were all trying to help me. Play is key in French, and I couldn't find it. And I thought, okay,
Mm.
Sharon, well, at least I'll learn French in a French jail, I guess, right? So there's one last place, a park, that I actually got lost to find it. And I thought, I'll never find it again. And I just was like, well, I don't know. I felt like it was maybe this way. Find the park.
Okay.
It's still open. There was a woman who was utterly mean, didn't look at me the day before, and it just dawned on me. I had bought a water and a little snack, and when I did, I pulled my key out. I thought I'd left it on there. I walk up and I go, Bonjour, madame, s'il vous
Mm.
plaît. And she goes, puts her finger up, like, wait, opens up a drawer, pulls out my key. I'm crying. She's crying. It was just that's when I found my voice. I mean, it was couldn't have been more symbolic. The key to my voice, the key to adventure, the key to everything.
Oh
Um,
my gosh. I just got chills. I mean, I love that.
it was, I mean, that was it for me. That was it. And that's when the second time I went back, the keys were I already had the key. So the
Yeah.
second time I had friends and just yeah.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. I love that story. That's incredible that you
Yeah,
actually found the key.
it was meaningful, but it all happened because I'm a calculated risk taker. I'm not somebody who's going to do stupid things. That's not what traveling is about. But it's also knowing when to listen to my gut and let
Mhm.
some of that anxiety and worry go. Like, somehow it's going to work out. I just tell myself that. And then
Mm.
even in my own life now, when my job is happening, I'm like, I could be in England or I could be stressed out right now that I lost my job. And I said, I'm in England. I'm in England, so
Enjoy
I'll
it.
make it work. That's the story I want to have. And everything else, it's like the universe kind of opens up to you then. Oh, okay, if you're okay, we're going to open up these other doors to you. And I
Things
got
just
to do a podcast with you. So,
Yeah, things just fall into place.
yeah, absolutely.
So speaking of falling into place, where are your next adventures taking you? You said you're in England right now.
Yeah.
Any plans for anything coming up?
So the visa works for 6 months, as you know, travel visa for England. They like us a little bit longer than Europe. Europe is like, you get 3 months with us and
I
then
know, right?
skedaddle. So I've been away since the end of May.
Okay.
And then I'm going to a 2-week cruise
That's
because,
right. You
again, I
mentioned
was
that.
looking
Yeah.
financially.
Yeah.
Like, financially, it makes sense because I'm getting travel, room and board, and food,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't have to fly anywhere because I'm taking it
Yep.
out of England. and it was a
Awesome.
last minute deal, so I got a great deal. It saved me more than traveling. So it's going to the Canary Islands. It's going to
Oh,
Portugal, Lisbon, and then
yes. Canary
the Canary.
Islands. Are you going to, sometimes they go to Madeira. Are you going to the,
I'll have to honestly, I'll have to look. Really,
okay.
my big thing was price. It's so
Yeah.
funny. There's different reasons why I traveled different times, right? This one was like, I don't know, I just need to, I need to get out of England for a while
Yeah.
because I'll overstay my visa and this will do it. So that is all I have planned up to, and that's like
Okay.
the middle of December.
December.
And then I have to figure out from there.
Any plans to come back to the US for the
Yeah,
holidays?
in January. In
Oh, in January.
January. And then
Okay.
I'm thinking I might travel again, travel. I've not done the West Coast. I
Okay.
really have not done a lot of the West Coast. The East Coast I love. I have connections there. So maybe, yeah, maybe start traveling again. Um, Camping. It's a very easy way to do it.
So I do want to get back, I meant to get back to your camping things. I have
Yeah,
a
go ahead.
personal question about, so, um, I consider myself very outdoorsy. I've camped quite a bit. Sleeping in a tent is not an issue for me,
Uh-huh.
but you've been sleeping in a tent for a long time. And how do you physically feel? Because I think at my age, I don't think I could do that long term like you've done. So,
Let me let's go back a little bit though. I had a tent and I definitely did camping, but I also stayed with friends. And then if I could find cheap, places that were safe and stuff, I did that. But yeah, I mean, I'm 54, so I joke with my friends. I'm like, when I was younger, it was like grab a weekend bag and go.
yeah,
Now I'm like,
yeah.
do I need a heating pad? Did I
Right.
remember to bring like certain meds that you can get here that I know work? That
Yes,
like
yes.
it's so funny traveling older, the things that I'm like, ooh, yeah, those shoes are cute, but no, can't walk in them.
Correct.
But you know what the funny thing is? I it worked wonders on my back. It
The heating
really
pad? Just a heating pad?
no, I didn't bring the heating pad.
Oh,
Camping
just camping?
on grass, like I mean with a tent, right? But like
Do you have a little
I
pad
didn't
that you
have a
use?
mat or
No?
anything. I just had the
Oh,
tent. I had
gosh.
the tent. And when I woke up, like I woke up with energy, my back felt better.
Okay.
Um, and it didn't always feel like that way. Don't get me wrong. It just depended on where I was camping. But it definitely straightened out my back sometimes for sure.
Okay.
But that's, I mean, I guess so many stories, if you ever want to hear another time, but yeah, that's part of the adventure. I tell myself, my worst day traveling is never like my best day at work. Or I don't know if I said it right, but the essence that I'm getting at is
Yeah.
if I have a
Someone
bad
recently
day,
shared that quote with me,
yeah,
that
it's a
yes.
bad moment. It's a bad
Yeah.
moment. I
Yeah.
don't think traveling's bad, but when I'm at work and things aren't right, I don't think, oh, this is just a bad moment or a bad day. I think this is awful and it's never going to get any better.
It's
Like
funny how we
that's the
think that way.
difference for me,
It's
right?
yeah, that is a big difference. Yes. And we're privileged to travel, so I think that too sets us with a different mindset in whereas work is this mundane thing that
Yeah,
almost like we're required to do. So again, that whole mindset of like, oh, this is bad. And then but travel, you might like you said, a bad day is a better day than a day at work,
right.
honestly.
Exactly. That's
Yes.
exactly it. And it's having that mindset. And my parents didn't travel, so
Mm,
they had like a fear of it and not having money growing up. I mean, these were all things that I just knew I wanted to do it, and you just take
yeah.
one step,
Yeah.
I shared with you my favorite quote is you'll never have enough time or money for your dreams. Do it anyway.
I
Like do
agree.
it, just take one step,
I agree.
whether it's getting a passport, because that does take money. So maybe you
Yeah.
just get it. So when the opportunity comes,
Yes.
there's so many people, well, I can't afford to get, but could you save up to get a passport?
Hmm.
Because you never know. Somebody might have to cancel it and say, hey, for half the price or for free, it's there, go.
Yeah.
And I knew that in my head. I wanted to have that. And I did. I had a friend on my trip. I was in Denmark, Copenhagen for 2 weeks for free. She's like, oh, I'm not going to be there. Go ahead and stay there for free. So
There you go.
you have
Right?
to set yourself up for these opportunities,
Yes. I
you know?
agree. Awesome. That's a great little nugget too. of information. So, do you have a social media presence where people might be able to find you? I think you have a blog. Yes?
I do. You know what?
Okay.
I've been, yes, I do have a blog that I've on my Facebook with my friends. I always post, but they're like, you need to start a blog. So I did
Yeah.
just start the blog. I'm going to start
Okay.
posting my things. And then I do have an Instagram that I'm going to make public again.
Okay.
Because that's the thing with traveling. You have to always be careful of, who you invite into your world or not. But my soul adventure is what it's called. My soul adventure one is just travels. That's all it is,
Okay.
of places and things. And yeah, please come, read my adventures on my blog. I'm happy to share it. And my Instagram, I think, are the two best places for right now.
Okay. And I'll make sure I include that in the show notes for people so they can, click on to see your blog and I'll leave your Instagram, connection too. That sound good?
Yeah, and I'm happy to share this link with people. So I've already kind of started, so I'm excited.
Oh, good. I'm excited
Yeah, we're
too.
gonna get more people.
Well, Sharon, it has been a joy, and I think we're gonna have to truly just connect since we live in Texas. Like,
Good.
because I love to physically meet my guests, even though
Yeah.
we do it virtually, the recording. And I actually had an opportunity to meet a past guest when I was in Portugal. So
Oh,
you never
fantastic.
know, right? So, and you live in Texas, there's really no reason for us not not to hook up
Absolutely.
some point. So definitely I think we'll be hearing or seeing each other again. So again, thank you so much for sharing your amazing stories and giving some
Yeah.
great advice to women out there that want to solo travel or, take it up a notch, right, for their
Well,
solo travel.
I appreciate your podcast. It's needed. We need that, right? We need
Yeah.
community and people that we trust, that we can say, you know what, I feel that way too, which is why I was drawn to your podcast,
Yes.
because it was like, if I needed 20 minutes, you have a 20-minute one.
Yeah.
If
Mhm.
something longer and I'm running or jogging, I have that
Yes.
as well. So, yeah, what you're doing is important. It's needed, and we
Thank
need
you.
that
Thank you
community
so
of
much.
safe people. Yeah.
Yes. Awesome. Well, thank you again, Sharon, and it's
Okay.
been a joy.
Excellent. And I will talk to you soon.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.